Well, we're looking at circles and completing the square. Like, we're going to do completing the square with circles, with our equations of circles. So we learned how to do completing the square, and now we're going to do it dealing with the circle equation. So this is what your problem will look like. They'll give you an equation in general form, and then you have to change it into standard form, and then you have to graph it. First off, do you remember what standard form of a circle is? That is your standard form. So we want to take this equation that they gave us and put it into that form. So you're going to complete the square. So first you want to group all your x terms together. So we have x squared and minus 6x. And then we're going to leave a space because we're going to put a third term there. And we're going to group our y terms together. So plus y squared plus 8y. And then equals, not 0. We're going to move the 21 over and make it negative 21. So if we completed the square, what number would go here? Remember, you half the 6 and square it to get 9. So if we add 9 to the left side, what do we need to do on the right side? Add 9. Okay, what number would go here? Half of 8 is 4, squared is 16. So we also have to add it to the right side. Okay, so how does x squared minus 6x plus 9 actually factor? And then what about the y part? It'd be y squared, and then it would equal what? Okay. So now we've got it into standard form. So now we want to graph it. So to graph it, we need to have our center and our radius. From this equation, where do we get our center? It's this number and this number, but what do you have to do to them? Change the sign. So it's going to be a 3 and negative 4. And then what is our radius? A 2. This little 4 is r squared. So r has to be 2. Okay, so now we graph it. How do we graph that? Okay, so where do I go for my center? Okay. Now what? Go left 2, right 2, up 2, and down 2. And now you draw a perfect circle. Y'all see how that works? Okay. So now let's look at another example. So what is the first step that you want to do? Okay, group your x's. So you have x squared and plus 4x. What else? Do what? Do the same thing with your y's. So y squared minus 6y equals what? Negative 6. Now what? So what number goes here? Okay, so we add 4 on the right. What number goes here? Plus 9. So you add 9 to the right. So we have x plus 2 squared. What would happen for your y? Y minus 3 squared, that's right. And then equals okay. So we got it into standard form. Are we finished? We have to graph it. So to graph, we need our center, which is negative 2, 3, and our radius. Square root of 7, which is approximately 2.7? 2.6? Okay. So we go to our center, negative 2, 3. How do we do our radius? You estimate 1, 2-ish, 1, 2-ish, 1, 2-ish, 1, 2. Pretty close. And then we draw our lovely circle. Do y'all see how that works? Okay. So let's look at one more example. It says to complete the square, to write the standard form and describe the circle. So do we actually have to graph it? You just have to tell what if you're describing a circle. No, we don't care about the circle's favorite color. Okay. We don't have to tell it that it's circular. Yep, the center and the radius. So if it says describe, you just tell what the center and the radius are. So, what is our first step that we want to do? But you're not a circle. I'd say more oval. Group your x's. So 2x squared minus x. And then we group our y's. 2y squared plus y. Can we complete the square whenever there's a 2 here? We got to move the 2 out. So if we take the 2 out of the x squared, what does that negative x become? Yeah. What about for the y part? It would be y squared plus 1/2 y. Now we can complete the square. Half of this is what? 1/4 squared, 1/16. So what do I add to the right side? No. Oh, no. It's getting multiplied by this little 2, so you add 2/16, which is 1/8. Okay? What gets put right here? Okay, so what do we add on the other side? All right. So this is 2 times x minus 1/4 squared plus 2 times y plus 1/4 squared equals 1/4 plus 13 over 4. Okay. Okay? No, you want to leave it as a fraction because they're going to write all their answers as fractions. Okay. Our standard form of a circle, does it have numbers in front here and here? So we got to get rid of them by dividing everything by 2. So your standard form would be x minus 1/4 squared plus y plus 1/4 squared equals 13 over 2. Over 8. Oh, yeah, I went the wrong direction. Yeah, now that's right. So that's your standard form. Now we have to describe it. So we already talked about that we needed our center and our radius. So what is the center? 1/4, negative 1/4. Now what is our radius? How do we find our radius? But they're going to leave it as a fraction with a radical. Okay, so you'd have the square root of 13 over 8. But remember, you can't leave a fraction in your radical. So you would break it down into 2 separate radicals. So the square root of 13 over 2 square roots of 2. But we can't leave a radical in our denominator. So multiply by 2. The square root of 2 over the square root of 2 to get the square root of 26 over 4. So your radius will be the square root of 26 over 4. So this is all that you would need for your answer. Your equation, your center, and your radius. Do y'all see how that works? Okay. There weren't any questions to omit on your homework tonight. We haven't skipped a lesson in a while, so